She has $10 million. That was the scream my younger sister Vanessa unleashed in front of 60 people at my birthday dinner in the Plaza Hotel. Gasps filled the gold-plated room. Glasses clinked against the tables as jaws dropped. Every single eye turned toward me. Melissa Carter, 34 years old, ICU nurse in New York City. The woman my family had always dismissed as the simple one. And now, suddenly, the secret I had protected for a decade was hanging in the air like a bomb about to detonate. Before I tell you how it all began, do me a quick favor. Subscribe now and comment one word. If your family found out you were secretly wealthy, would they protect you or betray you? Let me take you back to the start of that unforgettable night. The Plaza Hotel sparkled that evening. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across tables draped in ivory. My colleagues from the hospital sat beside old college friends, sipping champagne, sipping. My father shook hands with co-workers he had never met before, for once. I wanted a night that celebrated me, not as a nurse who worked double shifts, but as a woman turning 34 in style. I had saved for months, cutting back on every luxury, to host this party. People thought it was impossible for me. After all, what could a nurse afford in New York? But the truth was, I could have booked the entire hotel if I wanted. Nobody knew that, though, and I wanted it that way. I was greeting my supervisor from the ICU when the click of designer heels echoed across the marble floor. Vanessa arrived. She never entered quietly. She arrived like a storm. 40 minutes late, dressed in a crimson gown that seemed designed to blind everyone else in the room. "Sorry, everyone," she announced, her voice pitched to carry. "Client emergency. You know how it is when you run a multi-million-dollar marketing firm." She paused for effect. "Oh wait, most of you wouldn't." A few guests chuckled nervously. My mother beamed at her youngest daughter as if a movie star had arrived. "Vanessa," she said loudly, "tell everyone about your new contract." And just like that, the spotlight shifted. My party turned into her press conference. Vanessa pulled out her sleek iPad and began showing slides of her company logo. "We just closed $2 million in contracts this quarter alone," she declared, eyes sweeping the crowd. "And next quarter, we're projecting double that." My stomach twisted, but I smiled. I had learned long ago that challenging her only fed her ego. My colleagues exchanged glances. One of them whispered, "Is this really happening at your birthday?" It was happening. The temperature in the room seemed to drop with every line she delivered. My mother chimed in with barbed compliments. Unlike some people who are content with smaller careers, nothing wrong with being a nurse, of course, but not everyone has ambition. Her eyes landed squarely on me. The familiar sting pressed against my chest. I swallowed it down. For years, this had been the family script. Vanessa shining while I stayed quiet. But I knew something they did not. I was no longer just the nurse they pitied. Hidden in plain sight, behind quiet nights of study, careful investments, and the wisdom of my grandmother, I had built an empire they could not imagine. And that night, at the Plaza Hotel, the empire was about to be revealed in the most explosive way. Vanessa had barely finished bragging when she snapped her fingers at a waiter. "Can someone grab Melissa's laptop for me? I need it for my next slides." Before I could even respond, my mum was already waving at the coat check. "Bring her bag. Vanessa has something important to show everyone." I wanted to protest, but I stopped. Fighting Vanessa in public never worked. She was the type who would twist every word into her own victory. She flipped open my silver laptop with a dramatic flourish, like she was about to reveal the secrets of the universe. The universe had other plans. As soon as the screen lit up, a notification popped up in bold letters. Fidelity Investments, monthly portfolio summary, portfolio balance, $482,000. For a heartbeat. The room froze. Vanessa's hand trembled. Her face turned pale, then red, then pale again. "This has to be fake," she whispered, then louder. "This has to be fake." Heads turned. Gasps echoed across the tables. My colleagues leaned forward. My friends looked at each other wide-eyed. My mother actually clutched her pearls like something out of an old movie. A few people started whispering. 10 million. Did that say 10 million? Vanessa slammed her palm on the table. Explain this. Melissa, you're a nurse. How could you have this much money? I stayed calm. What they did not know was that 10 years earlier, my grandmother had quietly left me $4 million. And instead of flaunting it, I had studied late nights, earned my MBA online, and learned everything I could about investing. I poured every spare hour into meetings with my financial advisor. I picked safe index funds, healthcare startups I understood, and I let time do its magic. 4 million had grown into over 10, but in that room, none of them cared about patience or discipline. They only saw dollar signs. You lied to us. My mother's voice cracked. All these years, you let us think you were struggling. I never said I was struggling, I replied. You assumed. The guests shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Others were clearly entertained, watching a real-life drama unfold better than anything on Netflix. Vanessa leaned across the table, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You're sharing it. That's what family does. We share. Funny, I said softly. When Grandma was sick, where was this family? Her mouth opened and shut like a fish gasping for air. She had no answer, but her pride would not let her stop. She turned the laptop toward the room, waving her manicured nails for emphasis. Look at this. Look at what she hid from us. $10 million. It felt like the walls themselves were vibrating. The whispers had turned into a low roar. Guests filmed on their phones, eyes wide with shock, eager to capture the scandal. And just when I thought the night could not possibly get more intense, something happened that made even Vanessa stumble back. A calm, measured voice rose from the far end of the table. If what I think is true, he said, your grandmother's will might change everything. The room fell silent again. Who was he? Why did he sound so certain? That voice belonged to a man who would turn the entire night upside down. And you will not believe what he revealed next. The calm voice came from a man sitting at the far end of the table. He placed his wine glass down, adjusted his tie, and said again, If I am right, your grandmother's will is very clear. Every head turned toward him. Vanessa narrowed her eyes. And who exactly are you? The man gave a polite smile. Harold Brennan, estate attorney here in New York. I came as a guest tonight, but now I think my expertise might be relevant. The room buzzed. Half the guests leaned forward, phones still in their hands. Vanessa laughed, a sharp, nervous laugh. You cannot just waltz into a family matter and declare yourself an expert. But her voice cracked at the edges. She knew she was losing control of the room. Mr. Brennan folded his hands calmly. Actually, I can, because I know a clause like this when I hear it. If Melissa's grandmother left her the money, it likely came with conditions. Conditions that you, by demanding money, may have just broken. The silence was deafening. My mother blinked. Conditions? What conditions? I took a breath. This was the moment I had been preparing for, without even knowing it. 10 years ago, my grandmother Grace had pulled me aside. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were steady. She told me that real love is proven in small actions, not in words or flashy gifts. She told me she had saved every penny from her years as a teacher, investing quietly, patiently, until the fortune became something worth protecting. And then she left it all to me. But she added one rule: keep it secret for 10 years. If anyone in the family tried to take it, they would lose any chance of benefiting from her legacy. The rule was written into her will, and it was ironclad. As I remembered those words, my phone buzzed in my clutch. I glanced down. A message from Laura Kim, my attorney. She was on her way to the hotel with the original documents. Perfect timing. Melissa, Vanessa snapped, breaking my thoughts. Tell him he is wrong. Tell him you are not hiding behind some legal technicality. I smiled. Calm, steady. Vanessa, it is not a technicality. It is the truth. Grandma made her wishes very clear, and she put them in writing. The room gasped again. My colleagues exchanged looks, some nodding as if everything finally made sense. My best friend Jennifer mouthed the words "about time" from across the table. Vanessa shook her head violently. No, this is ridiculous. No piece of paper can keep me from what I deserve. Mr. Brennan raised his brows. Actually, it can. And it will. Just then, the doors to the dining room opened. Laura Kim entered, carrying a leather portfolio under her arm. Her heels clicked against the marble as she walked with the confidence of someone who owned the room. She placed the portfolio on the table, snapped it open, and pulled out a thick stack of papers. "This is the last will and testament of Grace Mitchell," she said. "Executed, notarized, and witnessed in January of 2013. Every condition is spelled out right here." Gasps rippled through the room again. Vanessa's face drained of color. My mother's lips trembled. What Laura was about to read would change everything. And trust me, you will not believe the clause that made both of them lose it all. Laura flipped through the thick document, her voice steady and sharp. "Grace Mitchell leaves her estate, valued at $4 million, to her granddaughter Melissa Carter." She paused, then read the next line louder. "Any family member who abandoned her in her final illness, or who attempts to demand money from Melissa, shall forfeit any chance of future gifts, bequests, or assistance." The room erupted in whispers. Guests covered their mouths. My colleagues exchanged wide-eyed glances. Phones recorded every word. Vanessa's jaw dropped. "That is insane. You cannot just cut family off like that." Laura looked directly at her. "By demanding money publicly, you have already triggered the forfeiture clause. You and your mother are now permanently barred." My mother gasped. Her face turned red, then pale, then red again. "But she was my mother. She would never do this to me." Laura slid another document across the table. "Visitor logs from the hospice. Melissa visited 200 times. You visited 3. Vanessa visited 0. The air felt heavy, like the chandeliers themselves were pressing down on the room. Vanessa's hand shook as she read the paper. This cannot be real. This cannot be happening. But it was real, and it was happening. Across the table, one of the investors who had come as a guest leaned back in his chair. His name was Michael Chen, a well-known venture capitalist in Manhattan. He had been quietly watching everything unfold, and now he spoke. "Vanessa," he said slowly, "I was considering a $2 million investment in your firm. But after seeing how you conduct yourself tonight, I cannot trust you with my client's money." Gasps again. Vanessa shot up from her chair. "You cannot pull out over a family disagreement." Michael shook his head. "It is not a disagreement. It is greed, and greed is not good business." He stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked out of the room without looking back. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced down, her eyes widening. No, this cannot be happening." Another client had just emailed her, withdrawing their contract. Then another, within minutes. Her empire began to crumble. Right in front of 60 witnesses. People whispered, some shocked, others clearly enjoying the spectacle. My colleagues smirked behind their glasses of champagne. My best friend Jennifer whispered, "Karma is faster than I thought." My mother slumped into her chair. "Melissa, stop this. You are ruining your sister's career." I met her eyes, calm but firm. "I did not ruin anything. Vanessa did this herself." The room was electric. Phones continued to record. Every second was being documented, shared, and soon it would be impossible to erase. Vanessa tried to argue again, but her phone would not stop buzzing. More cancellations, more broken deals. The girl who had strutted in 40 minutes late, bragging about her success, was watching her $1 million business collapse in real time. And the night was not even over yet. Because what Laura read next left everyone speechless. Laura's voice cut through the chaos one last time. With this clause triggered, Melissa now has full discretion over her inheritance, effective immediately. The room went silent, for the first time in years. I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. I was no longer the quiet nurse everyone underestimated. I was the woman my grandmother believed in. Vanessa sat frozen, staring at her buzzing phone. One client after another was pulling out. Her empire was dissolving in real time. My mother's face had gone pale, her hands shaking as she clutched the letter my grandmother had left her. Tears filled her eyes as she read words she could not deny. Grandma knew. She knew exactly how her daughter and granddaughter would react when money was on the line, and she made sure the legacy went to the one person who stood by her when it mattered, me. But the truth is, this story was never just about money. It was about respect, about the courage to set boundaries, about the strength to stay silent until the right moment, and then speak when it truly mattered. My grandmother always told me that money does not change people, it reveals them. And that night, in the Plaza Hotel, everyone saw the truth revealed. In the weeks that followed, my life changed. I accepted the promotion to Chief Nursing Officer. I started the Grace Mitchell Nursing Fund, a scholarship program for future nurses. I launched a small support network for healthcare workers who were tired of being undervalued, and within months it grew across the country. And through it all, I kept my promise to myself, to never let greed define my family or my future. Because here is the real lesson. Family is not just blood. Family is who shows up when you are in need, who listens when you speak softly, who protects your dignity when the world tries to strip it away. That night taught me that sometimes the best revenge is simply living the life they said you could never have. And now I want to ask you, if your family found out you were secretly wealthy, would they protect you or betray you? Would you share what you worked for? Or would you set boundaries to keep your peace? Do you believe family is automatically entitled to your success, or should every person stand on their own? Tell me in the comments. I read everything you share, and I want to hear your thoughts. And if you are still watching, do me a favor, hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not already. It is free, and it helps this channel grow so I can bring you more stories about standing up for yourself with courage and grace. Because at the end of the day, success is not about who doubts you. It is about who you become when you finally stop doubting yourself. And trust me, this is only the beginning.